This show is produced by the Harwood Podcast Network.
Hi, I'm Cindy Harris. We love making this show available to you free of charge. And if you'd like to help us keep it that way, make a contribution to our Karma Jar or become a show sponsor. To learn more, visit our website. Welcome back to the Bead Workshop. In this episode, we're going to be making a long pendant necklace. Now, the reason I chose this project today is it gives us a chance to learn how to make wire loops, which is something that we use a lot in jewelry making. Well, let's go over our design and our supplies for our project. Over here, I've done the drawing. This is what my necklace is going to look like. Yours is going to look a little different depending on the type of charm that you find at your craft store. Now, over here on our supply list, we're going to start by looking at our clasp set. Now, for this project, I've chosen a lobster clasp and ring, and you'll notice these are quite large, much bigger than the one we used on the bracelet. And the reason I've done that is because I'm using a much bigger gauge chain, and so I want something large to work with that. So there's my clasp and my little ring to go with it. Then I'm also going to need some chain. I need 36 inches of chain, which is about 91.4 centimeters. Now, the chain that I've chosen is this kind of double link chain that I thought was really interesting. But please feel free to get any chain you think would work well for you. And as you can see, I just bought 36 inches of it. This is going to make a really nice long necklace. Next on our supply list is one large charm. Now, this is the charm that I chose. I thought it was really, really pretty and really interesting. It's kind of conical with these little drops on it. It comes with its own jump ring. It's perfect. It's a mix of sort of a copper and gold. It was perfect for what I was going for. In fact, when I went to go to the craft store to pick these beads, I had a particular outfit in mind, and it had a lot of earth tones to it, so that's why this charm works really well. So as you can see on our drawing, that's what I've sort of made my charm look like. And this all came together, so you can find your charm with the jump ring and everything on it. Now, once you choose your charm, you are going to want to choose 3 assorted beads to go with it. Now, this is just a suggestion. You can use whatever you like, but I like the combination of metal, crystal, and glass. Now, let me show you what I've chosen to go with my charm. I've chosen this really interesting kind of copper filigree bead. I thought that was really pretty. I've also chosen a sort of amber colored crystal. And then I chose this really pretty green glass bead. Now, you can see these are all very different, but when you put them up next to your charm, they're going to give a real nice interest, and that green is going to give a real nice pop of color to our necklace. The last thing that we're going to be needing are head pins. Now, if you recall, head pins are just a long piece of metal like this, and then they have that flat head right on top. Now, you can certainly use the plain ones. In fact, that's all I had ever seen, but this last time I went to the craft store, I saw these head pins that actually had a decorative head to them that I thought would be really, really fun. So when you are at the craft store, even though I'm giving you sort of a list of supplies, look at what's available to you, and you may find something that's really, really interesting. So if you see when I lay these down here on my board, the head pin is very nondescript and will blend in beautifully with the bead, but I like this little decorative end. I thought that might really add some interest to this necklace. And we're going to be needing 3 of those head pins. And that's basically it for this necklace. Now, if you look on our drawing, I've tried to shade in the parts loops that we don't actually have to create. So we will only be affixing the clasps, not the chain. That's already made for us. The charm is already made for us, but we do want to decorate the sides of the charm with our metal, crystal, and glass beads. That's where we're going to learn our technique for today, which is learning how to make wire loops. Now let's get started putting our necklace together. I need my glasses and my pliers. Now I'm going to be using my flat nose and my round nose pliers here. We want to start by picking up our chain, and you'll notice on your chain it's actually a split ring, which is great. So we hold the pliers on either side of the link of chain and we just sort of bend it. So you can see I have that open nice and wide. I'll hold on to it with one of my pliers, and then I'll pick up my lobster clasp and I'm going to feed that right on the link of chain, just like this. And then I'll take my pliers and I'm just going to bend it backwards, basically from the way I separated it, and bring it back together. I'm also going to take my flat nose pliers and I want to flatten that together. You want to make sure that it comes back together, but you don't want to have any extra little bits of metal because that could catch on your clothing and you don't want that. So kind of feel and make sure that that's nice and smooth. And then once it is, you can see here we have our clasp right on the end. Now if you look at our drawing, you'll see the next thing that comes up is our whole pendant, and that's where we're going to start learning how to make our wire loops. Now on our drawing you can see the first bead I have here is my metal bead. So you'll want to get one of your head pins and your metal bead, and I'm going to feed the head pin right through that. But we have way too much wire here. Now, when I look at my jump ring here on my charm, this is a pretty thick jump ring, so I'm going to need to have a fairly decent size loop on that. So I'm going to give this a little more than my normal 1/4 of an inch bit of wire, but I'm going to snip that off. Now I'm going to take my round nose pliers here, and the first thing when you're making a loop is you want to bend the wire towards you. So I've got it like this, and I'm just going to bend it as a right angle right towards me like this, so you can see it's just this total angle. That's really important because the next part is where we take our pliers, and because I want a big loop, I'm going to use one of the larger ends of the pliers over here. If I was doing a small loop, I'd aim for right around here, but I want it to be bigger. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to lay it right, squeeze it with my pliers, the wire, and then I'm going to take it and I'm going to roll it backwards away from me. And what happens is it starts to make that little loop, which is perfect. I don't want it totally closed because I want to pick up my charm and put it right on there. And then you roll it around until it meets back to the wire. So that's the first little loop we've made, and that's our metal bead. Now if we look here in our drawing, our next bead is our crystal bead. So we're going to do exactly the same thing. So I'm going to take my head pin and I'm going to thread my crystal bead on there, and then I'm going to do the same thing. Again, because my charm has such a large jump ring, so thick, I'm going to cut a little bit longer piece of wire. And when you're cutting your wire, do aim it down like this because the velocity of it can come off pretty quick and you don't want it shooting across the room on you. And then we'll take our round nose pliers, we bend it to a right angle towards us, just like this. Then we come up to the top. We need this to be a pretty big circle, so I'm going to go about halfway up, and I'm going to roll it away from me. And there you can see my little loop right there. Now I want this crystal bead to be on the other side of my metal bead, so I'm going to make sure that's out of the way. I'm going to slip my loop right there on my jump ring, and then I'm going to take my pliers and I'm just going to bring that loop back around till it meets. And then that little loop came together really nicely. So now on our charm you can see we've got our metal bead and our crystal bead that gives a little bit of light. The next one we have is our glass bead. So I'm going to take it, thread the head pin through it, and again I love the way that little decorative one looks at the end. I'll take my wire cutters, give it about 1/2 inch, pointing it down so that metal doesn't shoot. Now for this bead, and sometimes when it's a totally round bead it doesn't matter, but because this bead has a certain face, I want it to look this way. I don't want it to hang like this. I want it to be flat. So I want to keep that in mind as I'm making my loop. So you can see for it to fit on my chain and hang this way, I really need to be holding the bead on its flat end to make the loop. So I'm going to hold it just like this. Got my round nose pliers. I'm going to make my right angle towards me. And then, now this is where it gets interesting. My right angle here ended up being a little askew. So I'm going to kind of straighten that up just a tad, like this. Then I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to roll it back. So I have my metal bead, my crystal bead, then I want the charm, then I want the glass bead. Hook that on, get my pliers and wrap it around until it makes a complete circle or loop. If I need to straighten it up, all I have to do is kind of take it and kind of bend it just a little bit. So now you can see this is our finished charm. We have our metal bead, our crystal bead, our charm, and then my little glass bead. Now in some cases your chain may be thin enough that your jump ring will actually slide over the top of it and will hang. In this case, my chain is actually a little too big, so I'm going to have to use the jump ring on my charm. I'm going to have to fix it into the middle of the chain. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to take the end of the other end of the chain and I'm going to match it up with the end of the chain where my lobster clasp was, and I'm going to find the middle, which looks to be right about here. And I'm going to, as I said on your charm, it is a split jump ring right there. So I'm going to lay this down on my bead board so I can keep that center. I'm going to take my round nose and my flat nose pliers, and I'm going to split that jump ring apart by just twisting it towards me. And you can see when I twist it, it splits open, and that's going to let me fix that onto the middle here of my chain. So I'm going to take the center, I'm going to feed my jump ring right through both links. And then I'll take my pliers and again I'll push that back together with the opposite motion that it took me to get it apart. There, and that looks really good. As you can see, that's nice and smooth and it's made a complete circle. And as I lay it out flat like that, you can see each of the little pieces on either side of the charm. It looks really pretty. And the last thing we need to do is put our ring on the other end of the chain so that our lobster clasp can affix to that. So I'm going to find the end of my chain and once again take my 2 pliers and split that apart by just bending it in opposite directions like that. Keep it open, holding it with one of the pliers, and then I have my nice ring here. Put that on there and close that up. And then checking to make sure there's no jagged edges. I'll just sort of pinch that together and down, and that feels great. And here is our beautiful long pendant necklace. I'm really happy the way it turned out. Now, if you'd like to practice making your little loops, one of the things you can do is take your leftover little bits of wire that we had, and you can practice by holding with your flat nose plier, almost like you had a bead there. Hold it real tight. Grab your round nose plier, give it the right angle towards you, and then practice rolling it back. The size of loops you make, depending on where you have it placed on your pliers, that's a really good thing to know how to do. Now, if you'd like to try making our long pendant necklace at home, just go to our website and go to the Bead Workshop show notes, and I'll have the drawing and the supply list there for you. And as always, if you have any questions, please send me an email. I'll see you next time.